What's up, Tailgaters? You're in the booth with Tailgate Nate today. Welcome to my channel, and we are now entering Championship Week, otherwise known as Week 14. That's what I've labeled this edition of the Top 25, and a Rivalry Week gave us a lot, and there are a lot of changes to this Top 25, including, finally, some real significant change happening inside of the Top 10 and inside of the Top 5 as well. So we're going to dive on into my Top 25 here. Again, my personal Top 25, not a prediction for the way I think the college football playoff rankings are going to look coming up tomorrow. This is my personal reflection of what I believe to be the top 25 teams in America right now. But before we dive into that, I just got to say thank you to all the support the channel has seen in my Ohio State-Michigan reaction video. Is absolutely blown up. Hey, continue to blow this channel up with views. Watching the video is a huge way to help support me, and also hitting that subscribe button, ringing the bell, which a lot of you have done as of late, which is amazing. You can also like, you can comment, you can share. Anything you do to interact with the channel helps to support it, and it does mean a lot to me. So thank you guys so much for whatever you may be willing and able to do. And before we dive on into the top 25, you guys know I got to go through the honorable mention list. Even though North Carolina lost to NC State this past week, still going to give them an honorable mention to get into the top 25. Kansas State lost an absolute thriller in basically a snowstorm against the Iowa State Cyclones. They have dropped out of my top 25, and they are there with a fellow Big 12 team in the Kansas Jayhawks. UCLA very close to breaking into the top 25 as well, although that loss to Cal definitely is going to hamper that. They are sitting at 7-5. Still feel like, though, that's a team that has a lot of very good pieces. Tennessee is still sitting here. They finished the season 8-4. Definitely a team that I still think can break on into the top 25. And then a ton of group of 5 teams here as well. The SMU Mustangs, if they beat the Tulane Green Wave, they can break in. Troy, if there are some teams that lose, they can break in. UNLV is going to play for their conference title game. Miami of Ohio will play for theirs. And then Toledo, if I had to have a team 26, Toledo would be number 26. But it was very, very close for me between Toledo and the team that I have here at number 25 in the James Madison Dukes. Both of those teams have been equally as impressive this season. Both of them sit with the same overall record, 11-1. The only difference being is Toledo is going to get to play in their conference title game. Now, that may matter next week when I post out my rankings right before we go ahead and break on into bowl season, right? But when I look at those two teams there, it again, sort of the thing that when I have trouble determining who should be above who, especially in a two-team race, I look at, okay, who would I favor right now on a neutral field? And you know what? I would favor James Madison on a neutral field right now. I think they have a little bit better pieces defensively to be able to handle what Toledo's going to throw at them. And again, James Madison, apart from that App State loss this year where they did look kind of shaky, have been very, very impressive all year long. James Madison is sitting at number 25. One of the only undefeateds left in the country, the Liberty Flames, sit here at number 24. I really, really like what Liberty has done this season with Hugh Freeze even gone. Liberty has gone above and beyond this season. They have looked really, really good with Jamie Chadwell at the helm. They've performed really, really well. They're going to be competing for a Conference USA title, and absolutely very interesting to see what the College Football Playoff Committee does with their rankings, but they're absolutely a player to go get a group of 5 spot, or to go get that group of 5 spot in a New Year's 6 bowl game. Really impressive season from Liberty. They're here at number 24. Couple of teams out of the ACC that were not ranked last week are now ranked this week. Clemson, they've been sort of up and down this year. There have been a lot of people that have speculating what's going to happen around this Clemson program. Is Dabo going to make some changes this offseason? Is Clemson as a whole going to make some changes this offseason? Very, very curious to see what Clemson does in this, or I should say these upcoming months in terms of with their staff and everything, and even moving forward with the transfer portal, recruiting, and everything like that. It just seems like the Clemson Tigers have sort of fallen down the ladder in the ACC, but make no mistake, this is still a really good team this year. They have a really good defense, a lot of good pieces on offense, especially in the running back room with Will Shipley and Phil Maffa. Clemson is back in the rankings here at number 23, and a team that, let's be honest, I probably should have had ranked last week. I just showed some love to the group of 5 schools last week. The NC State Wolfpack are here ranked. They are now 9-3. They beat their rival in the North Carolina Tar Heels, and that easily was enough for me to help vault them into the top 25. They're at number 22. Brennan Armstrong is that quarterback there, and while he's had some bad performances, for the most part has been really, really good. That NC State defense has really started to come together as well. Had some shaky games in the early going. That defense has really started to round into form. The NC State Wolfpack are sitting here at number 22, but sitting at number 21, I still do have the Utah Utes. Now, I know that is a 4-loss team, and again, you'll see that I don't really care about your win-loss record. It's how good of a football team I think you are, and I think Utah, even without Cam Rising, yes, this Utah team is obviously going to be better with Cam Rising, but I still think this is a really, really good team. I think they still absolutely deserve to be ranked, especially with how tenacious and how aggressive that defense is, and then even when you look over at the offensive side, yes, you don't have Cam Rising. Yes, you don't have Brant Keithy. You haven't had them for the entire season. Thomas Yasmin also went down with injury. It's a Utah offense that has been riddled with injuries all season long. You even had Jaquindon Jackson, that really good running back, go out for a couple games there as well. But from top to bottom, I've been fairly impressed. Given all the injuries and everything that's happened within this Utah program, I've been very impressed by the way they've played this year. 8-4, I don't think is a bad record by any means for this Utah program. They will sit here at number 21. We get into our first couple of teams that are going to be playing in conference title games in the Power 5 realm here with the Oklahoma State Cowboys and the Iowa Hawkeyes, who sit at number 20 and number 19. With Kansas State losing, they do jump up some spots. Now, Iowa, very gritty win there against the Nebraska Cornhuskers. I was there in Lincoln watching the game live in person, and obviously the Iowa offense has a ton to work on, right? A ton to work on. They're just quite simply not very good this year, but that defense is legit. That defense is for real. They play a really, really good scheme, and look, you're probably going to get mismatched by Michigan in the Big Ten title game coming up here. However, when I take a look at what the Iowa Hawkeyes have done this year, they may be able to do some things that are going to be able to give Michigan some fits. They would need to really be able to find their rhythm offensively, though, if they're going to want to be able to pull that upset. And then for the Oklahoma State Cowboys, they had a couple weeks where they looked really, really good, and it's been sort of up and down. And even that entire game against the BYU Cougars was an absolute roller coaster. They were up and down and up and down. Ollie Gordon started to take control. This is an Oklahoma State team that especially offensively started to find their rhythm. Defensively, they really started to lock down and play good football late in that game, and they were able to come out with, I think, the double overtime win, although I could be wrong on the number of overtimes that happened there. I believe it ended up only going to 2, and Oklahoma State was able to pull out the win. They will be representing Stillwater in the Big 12 title game against the team that we'll see later in the poll in the Texas Longhorns. Chance for Oklahoma State to ruin some college football playoff hopes. Iowa maybe can ruin Michigan's hopes, although I think with that win, Michigan probably now in the playoffs no matter what, although again, that remains to be seen. We'll see what the committee does. The Notre Dame Fighting Irish are going to finish off their season fairly well here. I believe a 9-3 record. Took a little bit of time to get going there against Stanford, but they eventually were able to pull away. Sam Hartman has had some amazing moments for this offense. Now again, Marcus Freeman has had some games where Notre Dame has not played well, and Notre Dame has really slipped and just hasn't really been able to find their rhythm. Notre Dame is a team moving forward that I still really, really like, especially once we get into bowl season here. They're going to end up getting into a pretty solid bowl game. And again, don't think that's a bad record at all for Marcus Freeman and company. So Notre Dame is going to sit there at number 18. Been very impressed with the way the Notre Dame has played this season. I've been very impressed with the way the Oregon State Beavers have played. Now, this is going to be the highest ranked 4-loss team, and you might say, how is Oregon State ahead of some teams like Iowa, like Oklahoma State, that are going to be playing for conference title games? Well, it's quite simple. I definitely do think that Oregon State is a better team. And when you take a look at the losses that they have, they're not bad losses by any means. Washington and Oregon, hey, if everything goes right, maybe we see both of them break into the college football playoff, but at least one of them is going to do so. They also have a loss to the Arizona Wildcats. And look, we know how good of a team Arizona is this year. In fact, you haven't seen them in the poll yet, but you know that I'm going to rank them. Oregon State does not have a bad loss on the schedule is what I am trying to say. Oregon State has played, maybe the Washington State loss there looking not as good as it did early on. However, I think Oregon State's a really good team. I think DJU being able to have that resurgence there, again, hasn't been super eye-popping offensively, but Damian Martinez, Deshaun Fenwick are really, really good. That Oregon State offensive line is really good, and that Oregon State defense is really good as well. Now, Jonathan Smith has moved over to Big Ten country. He will be the new coach of the Michigan State Spartans. So Oregon State's going to need to be looking for a new head coach. But Jonathan Smith laid a great foundation. We will see who Oregon State may be able to pick up there. I believe the wide receiver coach has been named the interim as of right now. The Tulane Green Wave sit here at number 16, and we'll talk about them after a quick water break. Remember to stay hydrated. Water is important, but the Tulane Green Wave are the front runners in the Group of 5 conversation. If they are able to take care of business in the American Athletic Championship game against the SMU Mustangs, they will be the Group of 5 representative in a New Year's Six bowl game. Now, there are some teams that can chase them, and just because there's not a Group of 5 team that's really even relatively close in my poll, Liberty can challenge them. We'll see what the committee thinks about Toledo if they end up ranking them in their top 25 poll, which definitely absolutely can happen, right? Toledo could be a player in the Group of 5 conversation as well, but for all intents and purposes, if Tulane is able to take care of business against SMU, they will be the Group of 5 representative in a New Year's Six bowl game. Now, Tulane has had some shaky moments this year, but when you look at their resume from top to bottom, there are a lot of good teams in the American Athletic Conference this season. You just went and beat UTSA, who now finished 7-1 in conference. Memphis was also a team that, if some things went right, or if some more things went right down the stretch, really were a team that was going to be able to make an impact and make a run towards getting into the New Year's Six bowl game conversation. Didn't end up happening, but Tulane has some good wins, and their only loss is a team that's going to be featured here inside my top 15, and actually is at number 11 in the Ole Miss Rebels. Now, we'll talk about that when we get there, but Tulane is a team that, look, they take care of business. They're going to go to a New Year's Six bowl game, case closed on that. The Arizona Wildcats are sitting here at number 15, and Arizona, much like the team that's right above them at 14, we'll get to them in a second, they've been one of the feel-good stories of the season. They've been one of the surprise teams of the college football season this year, and they've done it for the most part without their starting quarterback in Jaden Delora. Noah Fafita has taken over. He's got a lot of fantastic weapons. Tay Tyroa McMillan, Jacob Cowing, some really good options in the running back room, but I've also been impressed with the way this defense has been able to come along here with the Arizona Wildcats. Not a huge amount of expectation for Arizona entering this year, but I think a lot of fans around Tucson know that Jed Fish had that program moving in the right direction, and he exploded this year. Hats off to what the Arizona Wildcats have done this year. They're going to find themselves in a pretty good bowl game, and they can be competitive depending on who they draw. So Arizona's going to sit there at number 15. Louisville, for me, is at number 14. Obviously, a heart-crushing, a soul-breaking loss there to the Kentucky Wildcats, your rival, who, again, Louisville has struggled with, at least in the past couple of meetings. But that loss hurts more because it ruins their chances at a college football playoff appearance. They were going to need a lot to have happen for them to get into the college football playoff anyway, but now just sort of solidifies the notion that, hey, sorry, Louisville, you're not going to be a team that makes the college football playoff this season. However, with all of that being said, there's no reason to have any sort of negativity on the Louisville Cardinals season. 10-2, the job that Jeff Brom has done with his alma mater in year one has been fantastic. You could sit there and say things like, well, their schedule was very favorable. They didn't play anybody super tough. And you could also sit there and still be negative and say, hey, look at their two losses to two unranked teams. Pitt, who was terrible, and then Kentucky, who wasn't even really that good. But the job that Jeff Brom has done is phenomenal, and Louisville is still a really, really good team. This defense was able to come together. Jack Plummer being entered into this system, being able to get Jamari Thrash from the transfer portal, two huge pickups. Jawar Jordan, Isaac Garendo had phenomenal seasons. This is a really, really good Louisville Louisville team that if Florida State beats them in the ACC title game, Louisville definitely will still be a team that can get into a New Year's Six bowl game in the Orange Bowl again, unless they somehow beat Florida State. They may get the Orange Bowl bid anyway, but again, interesting to see what happens there with that. So still a player to get into a New Year's Six bowl game, which again, very successful season for Jeff Brom there in year one. We'll go through these next two teams here pretty quickly. They will not be playing in conference title games, but two teams I think are pretty good. The Oklahoma Sooners were able to take care of business in their season finale. They have a 10-win year after a disastrous season last year, but the Oklahoma Sooners able to take care of business against the TCU Horned Frogs. They're on Friday in their season finale. They're going to finish the season, the regular season, I should say, ranked here at number 13. And we will see where Oklahoma winds up during bowl season. Maybe it could be against a team like the LSU Tigers, who sit here at number 12. And Jaden Daniels last week, look, there was a lot of struggle with LSU against the Texas A&M Aggies. Jaden Daniels may be your Heisman Trophy winner, even though he will not be playing in a conference championship game. Jaden Daniels certainly took over that game against the Texas A&M Aggies, helped LSU be able to pull out the win there in that game. And if he doesn't win it, you're at very least going to see Jaden Daniels as a Heisman finalist in New York. So that's going to be a very, very interesting conversation to have happen to see there who wins the Heisman. But the LSU Tigers there sitting at number 12. For me, though, the Ole Miss Rebels, they did not move from this past week. They sit there at number 11. Now, 2 losses on the regular season. It was not pretty against the Mississippi State Bulldogs for the most part, but Lane Kiffin's group able to pull out the win, get yet another 10-win year. Definitely, there's going to be some conversation to have happen on whether or not they get into a New Year's Six bowl game, as their 2 losses are to the Alabama Crimson Tide and to the Georgia Bulldogs, the 2 teams that you see in Atlanta competing for the SEC championship game. So the Ole Miss Rebels, the Jackson Darts played really well. Quinshon Judkins, it was not really good for him in the early going, but he was able to find his rhythm. He was able to get going. This is an Ole Miss team that also continues to take strides defensively. It just feels like their defense gets a little bit better and a little bit better every single year under Kiffin, and this is the program that obviously is trending in the right direction with the 12-team playoffs coming up next year. Ole Miss is going to be a player to get one of those 12 spots there. Pretty much, it seems like it just seems like the Ole Miss is going to be a player to get a spot in the 12-team playoff every single year. So Lane Kiffin doing a phenomenal job there. Ole Miss, for me, finished with the regular season ranked 11th. But I did end up jumping Penn State back into the top 10. Now, while, again, you could have the debate on whether or not Ole Miss or Penn State would be favored on a neutral field, ultimately, to me, Penn State's resume just looks a little bit better, as Penn State, their 2 losses are to Ohio State and Michigan, which you haven't seen Ohio State on the board yet, means I still think that those are 2 top 5 teams. Meanwhile, Ole Miss lost to Georgia and Bama. Now, you can sit there and debate which pair of losses is better, and I'll probably continue to go back and forth with that myself. But the Penn State Nittany Lions are back in here in the top 10, and they also manhandled the Michigan State Spartans in their regular season finale. Michigan State just went and hired Jonathan Smith. I'll do a video at some point after championship week grading some of the new head coaching hires, although I might wait a little bit longer there to be able to do that. But when I take a look at this Penn State team, and Drew Aller really showed me that he can throw the ball downfield. That was the big question about Drew Aller for most of the season, and he finally found it against the Michigan State Spartans. Great momentum going into next year, and Penn State probably a team that you were going to see get a bid for a New Year's Six bowl game, much like the Missouri Tigers. This has been the best feel-good story of the season so far. It was a huge swing and a miss for me to predict them to miss a bowl game, and I'll take all the heat for that for eternity, because Missouri has really impressed me, and they, I think, have really impressed most people throughout the season. Brady Cook to Luther Burden is one of the most dynamic quarterback to wide receiver combinations that the nation has seen this season. Their running game has really impressed me as well, and especially that defense. While it has had some problems, and there have been games this year where it has really struggled to slow down really anything. But Missouri has really, really impressed me. Eli Drinkwitz was a coach that a lot of people were looking at before the year as, okay, is he going to be the guy? Is he really someone that you want to keep leading this program? Missouri could be coach hunting at the end of the season, and all Eli Drinkwitz did was probably secure himself a fat payday. If he can continue to coach like that, and this is a Missouri team that's going to continue to do things that they did this season, Missouri is going to be a really good team for the next couple of years at very least. One of the feel-good stories this year, Missouri performed really, really well. They are sitting here at number 9. They will get a bid into a New Year's Six bowl game more likely than not. And now we're getting into teams that are going to start playing for conference championship games, and we're getting into a string of them. Alabama is sitting here at number 8. Now, it wasn't pretty in the Iron Bowl at all, and you did need the late game heroics that I talked about in my weekly takeaway. Excuse me, don't know what is going on with my voice today, but the Alabama Crimson Tide needed the late game heroics from Isaiah Bond to be able to stay alive and be able to stay in the college football playoff race. Now, obviously, if they win the SEC championship game, it's probably going to be pretty hard to be able to keep them out depending on what else happens around them, right? But hey, when you look at face value for the Alabama Crimson Tide, you have everything in front of you. If you take care of business and you go beat the Georgia Bulldogs in Atlanta in Mercedes-Benz Stadium, you're probably going to have a fairly good shot there to be able to get in to the college football playoff. But for the Crimson Tide here, this is a team that a lot of people started to doubt, and a lot of people were really questioning, is Nick Saban still got it? Alabama's, the dynasty is no longer there. And while that second part may be true, Alabama's still a team that's going to compete for a college football playoff spot no matter what. The Alabama Crimson Tide sit here at number 8. They do not move. Now, I may get some heat for this, but in my personal rankings, I do have Florida State dropping one spot there. They were at 6 last week, and now they have dropped down to 7. What I am going to say about the rankings is, to me, they are not in any sort of order of, okay, so because Florida State is below Texas, I think Florida State has a lower likelihood to make the college football playoff. That's not the way that these rankings work. These are rankings of who I truly think is better than everybody else, right? So just sort of a ranking by who I believe are the best teams, right? Not in any terms of because they're lower, they have no shot to make the college football playoff, or they have a lower shot to make the college football playoff than team da-da-da-da-da. That's not what this is at all. But Florida State, without Jordan Travis, I knew was really going to struggle. Now, that Florida game played out pretty much how I thought it was going to. I sort of felt like that Florida was going to end up taking control. Florida was going to end up taking control early. Things were not going to look good for Florida State. Tate Rodemaker was going to end up struggling, but they were going to be able to find it. I thought the defense was too versatile, and they have too many playmakers, which is exactly how it ended up happening. Now, some costly penalties from Florida definitely helped the Seminoles out as well. But if you are the Florida State Seminoles, and even with a backup quarterback, and even with still a lot of skepticism around this team and around this program, if you win the ACC, the title game, it would be near impossible to keep Florida State out of the college football playoff. They'd have a perfect 13-0 season. They'd have wins over LSU, and they'd have another top 25 win over the Louisville Cardinals. Even though they lost, they are going to remain ranked by the college football playoff committee. It would be a resume building win. You're 13-0. You have the ACC title. Be really hard to keep Florida State out if they win. But again, the Jordan Travis injury is significant, and I just don't think they're playing their best football right now. They did drop a spot there to number 7. Texas, though, look, they did lose Jonathan Brooks, but CJ Baxter is an absolute workhorse as well. He's running really, really well. The injury to Xavier Worthy is noteworthy, though, right? You see what I did there? Xavier Worthy, noteworthy. That was not intentional by any means. But for the Texas Longhorns, you win the Big 12 championship game. You give yourself everything in front of you to be able to go make your case to the College Football Playoff Committee on why Texas should be one of the 4 remaining teams, right? Or I should say should be one of the 4 teams that's going to go make the College Football Playoff. However, for Texas, you maybe do need some things to have happen above you, depending on the way these rankings come out here with the College Football Playoff Committee, to be able to get in to the college football playoff. But if you take care of business there against the Oklahoma State Cowboys, you're going to be able to find yourself in a really good position to make the college football playoff. Let's dive on into the top 5 here, and I still do have the Ohio State Buckeyes as a top 5 team. Now, I said this in my weekly takeaway video, but I felt like Ohio State left everything on the field. I thought maybe there are some things here and there that obviously you'd like to see different. Kyle McCord maybe making a little bit better of decisions with some of his throws, maybe a couple play calls here and there. But again, I'm not one to sit here and question play calling, but Michigan was the better team from start to finish. Now, I don't fault Ohio State for going on the road and losing to a team that you see clearly I have now as the best team in the country, and I'll explain why I have that here in a minute. And again, this is not a reflection of who I believe is a team that is closer to getting into the college football playoff. Obviously, Texas and Florida State have a better shot to get into the college football playoff. Maybe not according to the playoff predictor or anything like that, but according to most people, Texas and Florida State, if they win their conference title games, it would be really, really hard and pretty much impossible to say that Ohio State is more deserving of a one-loss conference champion to get into the college football playoff. Now, that being said, there still is a path for the Buckeyes to be able to get in, and it would require a whole bunch of wins. You'd need Florida State to lose. You'd need Texas to lose. You'd probably need Washington to beat Oregon in the Pac-12 championship game there as well. So a lot of things are going to have to happen there. It's not as complicated as you may think it needs to be for the Buckeyes to get in. However, with the way that things have worked out this year, Ohio State more likely than not will either head to the Fiesta Bowl or to the Orange Bowl. Very interesting to see what bowl game they end up. I think a lot of people feel like it is going to be the Orange Bowl, which is where the Buckeyes will wind up. Still a very, very good team. You've got one of the best receivers, or I should say you've got one of the best players in the country, and Marvin Harrison Jr. Likely we'll see him in New York as a Heisman finalist. And speaking of Heisman finalists, I mean, this game between Washington and Oregon for the Pac-12 championship may very well also decide who wins the Heisman Trophy. Bo Nix and Michael Penix are probably going to be the two guys that join Marvin Harrison Jr. and probably Jaden Daniels there in New York, and the winner between Washington and Oregon, or whichever quarterback has the better stat line. First of all, I think whichever quarterback has the better stat line, their team is probably going to end up winning that game. That preview prediction will be coming out tomorrow between Washington and Oregon. But when I take a look at those two teams there, obviously the winner is going to get into the college football playoff. I think Oregon is playing better football, but the reason Washington is above them is A, they have the head-to-head win, and obviously they are undefeated, and obviously with the win over Oregon still has that one loss, right? But when you take a look at those two teams, two really, really good teams, two teams that absolutely are deserving to get into the college football playoff, but more likely than not, only one of them will. It'll be the winner of the Pac-12 title game in Las Vegas. But the top two teams in the nation, I think without a shadow of a doubt, are the Georgia Bulldogs, who I've sat at number 2. They, again, have been sort of off and on as of late. Georgia will look really, really good, and then they'll have a game where they struggle. And I definitely don't think they played even a B-plus game. They probably played a B- to a C game there against their rival in the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets, but I still like the way that Georgia's played. That's still a really physical, tough team, and they've really started to find it here as of late. And, of course, you win the SEC championship, you're in. And even if you don't, there's still a strong case on why Georgia should be in the college football playoff, but Michigan showed in the game why I think they are the best team, and again, why they were my preseason pick to win the national championship. J.J. McCarthy, again, did not have a lot of explosive plays, not a ton of absolutely dynamic throws, did make a lot of very, very good throws. Again, made some very good throws. Blake Corum was finally healthy for the game, and on his birthday ran really, really well, and the Michigan defense came up huge so many times, right? Michigan was able to slow Ohio State down. Now, there were times where the Buckeyes were able to move the ball, but Michigan being able to beat Ohio State like they did, and even though the scoreboard was close, Michigan dominated that game from start to finish. Maybe not dominated, but they controlled the game. They were the better team for, in my opinion, the entire 60 minutes, and that is why I have Michigan sitting there at number 1. To me, the best team in the country is the Michigan Wolverines. And again, they did all of that without their head coach. They will get him back when Michigan plays Iowa in the Big Ten championship game. But that's going to do it here for this video, guys. Let me know your personal top 25 in the comment section below. Anything you'd change. and anything you're looking forward to here for championship week. We're going to preview all 10 conference championships on this channel with their own video. The first one going to be up, though, is Washington and Oregon, the likely top 5 showdown in the Pac-12 title game. So that's going to do it for this video. Hey, remember to play hard but tailgate harder, and I'll see all you guys in the next video. Goodbye.